We're here with we're here with a Text Talks BattleTech video. That's right, we're checking out the charger today, which is BattleTech / Mech Warrior lore. Now, the homies that are all about that Text Talks, if you will, reached out to me and they're like, hey Alicia, can you react to one of our videos? And we'll throw $50 towards some charity of your choice. I said, hell yeah, fellers! So here we are checking out a video together. We actually reacted to one BattleTech video before by BPL, so if you want to check that out, that'd be awesome too. And that lore was so fun to get through. And hey, let's check out this one too. But while we're here, you know what to do, shawty. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below to feed the algorithm gods. Check us out over on the Twitch channel. I stream every single day at Aliciaxlife. You're currently watching Aliciaxdeath. Aliciaxlife is my Twitch. And check out the link to the original video in the description below. This was supposed to feature a lot of people from the BattleTech community, so I'm excited to see what's up with that, and let's get it. Silence. Oh, music. What's happening? The cute closed caption. Oh dang, do I gotta read? Ah, shit, hold on. The year is 2665. It is a time so prosperous that they call it the Golden Age of the Star League. Far from the spotlight, an unknown company accidentally created something truly special.
The definition of crazy as we commonly accept it today is the defined characteristic of being mentally unsound, marked by lack of thought, or driven by action which lacks sound reasoning.
That's me!
It is synonymous in use as a descriptor for anything erratic, impractical, or unusual in the extreme.
That's me!
It is by now, from habit of use alone, a genericized word made more mundane with every individual misapplication.
Good thing I'm appropriate
Definition
application.
Of a truly
I
bad
mean,
mech, as we commonly accept it today, is the character of being the charger, or something very much like it. And I, for one, believe that that assessment is inaccurate for a number of reasons.
oh,
The charger has been called the grand incarnation of Abagor or Elegos in the history of the military-industrial complex. By its pilots, however, it has been called the walking target, the most
What?
cursed machine, the embarrassment made manifest, the mech that...
hold on. That's how one of y'all dads talk to you for sure. There's someone in the chat going, damn, my dad called me that. The embarrassment made manifest. Bro. That shot someone in chat just now. I don't know who it shot, but it got somebody. It got somebody. That's a crazy ass line.
graft built. And most amusingly, the second most disappointing thing on two legs.
The first being you.
I think these characterizations, as applied to the charger and without context, are not entirely fair, as I firmly believe the charger is frequently misunderstood and often miscast with minimal supporting context as a
Oh my god, it's a misunderstood teenager. Let's take it with that context. Let's take the charger with the context that's a misunderstood damaged teenage youth. And let's see where this goes. Huh? Alright, food for thought.
a machine that has accidentally stumbled into and somehow survived 4 succession wars, and virtually everything else since, as some sort of bizarre military-industrial cryptid. Accordingly, I feel a more thorough examination, a much broader context, and some actual evidence will help us refute much of the mythos surrounding this machine, and thus help us establish its actual place in history.
Alright.
And the real history of the charger, or in a fashion, A much truer history is indeed a strange tale. Like many said during the Succession Wars, the Charger story is not a singular cohesive event, but rather a scattering of burned notes and margin citations cast like radioactive ash on the wind. As in fact, they were. To define the Charger by the machine as built and leave it at that, a tidy sum of its stats and munitions, it would
Okay, this is so cute. Meat parts, pistola, murder mitten, leg. Hold on, babe. Put on my murder mittens. I'm ready to go to town.
fail to explain how these things endured their nuclear baptism of fire and still somehow continue to haunt battlefields today. Perhaps I'm old-fashioned, but I feel there's more to a mech than numbers. As frequently presented in a game of what if, or what might have been, the Charger stands apart as the assault mech everyone laughs at. It's the poster boy of Star League malaise during the Golden Age. It's 80 Star League tons of grade A Star League graft, with 5 whole small lasers as the only listed weapon system, operating in the capacity of a scout. As designed and presented, the Charger is unfortunate, with a side of damn.
I'm sorry, these descriptions are OD, bro. Holy.
And reduced to such a simple analysis, the Charger has been a standard for academics on the manifold sins of the military-industrial complex. And yes, while the Charger is a very useful study in those areas indeed, there is another and very crucial part of the Charger story. It's a story told in the margins of our shared history. A story set in the hard shadows of brighter lights. It is a story told between the graft of the machine as conceived and its actual end use. It is a story set in a wild and strange time. A time which directly shaped the collapse of our civilization as we knew it, and quite literally, all of the fallout afterward. This thesis as presented.
I am so glad I watched the BattleTech 101 video before this. Because, oh my god. I was like, my brain instantly goes, I remember the factions! And I got really excited in my head. And I was like, oh, thank god.
Why the Charger is. We will explore how, despite every claim to it being absolutely useless, this stupid thing may in fact never die. As we slowly place the machine into context one piece at a time, we will find that the Charger stands at a very strange place in our collective history. For it was born in a strange era, thrown into another, and then somehow, just like the rest of us, endured. On the matter of how and why, as argued by critics of the machine, I firmly believe the Charger to be a victim of that modern historical lens of plentiful choices and the infinite strategic arsenals of human imagination. And perhaps, in such form, the Charger may stand as an enduring invitation to remind ourselves that history is frequently not so simple as we make it out to be. To begin, we examine the roots of the Charger with its birthplace. A time so unique in opportunity, and yet so contrasted in limitless graft, we historians gave it a label. We call it the Golden Age.
Alright. So there was a time, chapter 1.
The first myth of this machine, which I must now dispel, is the belief that
I'm sorry, that voice change up? Am I anyone else? I have never felt this close to words in my brain in my life. Alright, so the first myth of this machine. I'm like, His voice is nice. I feel like he's close. How close is he? Is he in my brain?
the Charger was built in a time and a place that you can fundamentally understand. The Star League at its zenith was a unique creature in history, and its relative, if borrowed peace shaped things in ways we today would dismiss as insane, or more likely, tyrannical in nature.
Oh, I
With
love
such a
tyranny.
civilization, history frequently repeats and cycles of strife are nothing new. Clausewitz wouldn't shut up about it back in the 19th century. His contemporary, one Antoine Jomini, had the same bug. Being extraordinarily militarily well-versed and highly paranoid was the height of fashion back then as it is now. Their wisdom still rings true today and is carried by rote memorization for every war college in existence. They say, dispassionately, that war is politics by any other means, and while the politics of ancient Terra were likened to gathering storms, the inner sphere doesn't make storm clouds in that sense, or on that scale. And sadly, as we have previously established, there is no substitution for an actual shooting war to define pure conflict. Actual war shows you what works and what doesn't. Nothing shatters illusions of safety or misconceptions of threat vectors like the sudden application of raw firepower to extinction-level scale. The existential issues and catastrophically understated challenges with trying to design next-generation anything during peacetime as well emerges sometimes in the form of a problem or problems for many lifetimes, and an expensive means by which to transport your fighting men to their graves, in order to better cover up the graft committed by men now long prosperous and retired, if not dead, because anyone who could object was, well, yeah. So with no shooting war,
now, my dears, hear me out. We just take the dead and we rise them. Thus, they keep working for us forever. It's okay if there's just scraps of body parts. We just kind of stitch them back. Even in a shootout. No? No? No?
the practice of war enters peacetime where, I'll be honest, anything goes. And because paranoia is
a power source for our mechs! Let's go!
Popular cognitive disorder in the inner sphere, it is very frequent that governments do not ever stop spending money on defense. We never stop making weapons, in fact. We just rebrand the product, or if that fails, the problem. In this magical place between wars, you will see any idea or program that has any possibility of working being thought up, planned, designed, bought, and made right up until an actual war starts. And only then do you see who was right all along and who was smoking crack. Historically, this interwar period is where
okay, that's so, the way he says it so seriously is insane to me. Okay, I love that. Because I'm always here like, man, you smoking crack? What the fuck is wrong with you, bitch? Like, I talk like that. So hearing someone be like, and you see who's smoking crack. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? My brain's like
frequently find a gaggle of artistic statements shaped like weapons, and I'm not hating them, for until an actual war starts, all these ideas are just about as valid as anything else is. So how long was this interwar period? This magical age of fun ideas and whimsy, an age of prosperity and economic boom that was...
I mean, it's cool because, like, if you don't really have, like... I mean, prior to war, you could be as creative as you want to because you don't actually know the situation in which you're, like, technology will actually be useful, right? So it's cool to see, like, that's, like, kind of, like, the innovation era of, like, right before they go into the actual war and conflict again. Which is like what he said, like this is where you know if like what you've built and what you've created actually makes sense in its context or if it's just some bullshit, right?
So unprecedented that they called it the damn golden age. 168 years of peace. Well, let's say relative peace, at least by inner sphere standards. But it was 168 years of what if. 168 years of decisions just like the Baron, decisions made and shaped without ever testing them and hoping, if the time came, all would be well. And as we well know, hope is a most fragile currency in the inner sphere. As far as why...
I'm so sorry, just 1 second. There's someone in chat who's like, I don't know what's going on, but I love the narration. Low key, I had this slight temptation and it was just inkling in my brain to start gaslighting the fuck out of you and act like this was real. And be like, oh, we're watching a history documentary. just like start fucking with you. You are so lucky I didn't choose violence today because I was really about to do it and then I stopped myself. All right, no, we're watching a video about BattleTech, and this one's about mech warriors and shit, and like learning about particularly the Chargers.
War is mostly simple as analysis goes. In the strategic threat department, you know who's shooting at you most of the time. Peace, however, is another animal. All your former enemies and all of your friends are at the same table, and every private smile they exchange makes you so very glad you have so many nuclear weapons. And yet it is this very strange place of an enforced artificial peace, one built on lies and death, yet counterbalanced on the promise and potential of a hopeful future where we begin our story. It was a time so uniquely plentiful and yet unsustainable, we call it again the golden age of Star League. And while many believed my earlier work painted the Star League, and by extension the Star League Defense Forces, in immaculate light, I frequently remind people my view of that conflict is related directly to that conflict, and not the organization across its entire existence. The Star League was, in fact, an absolutely grossly flawed organization from its inception as an imperfect Faustian bargain between nation-states. It was an organization predicated on false morality, with the factual treaty abrogation of the Ares Conventions from its inception as a unified military force, and then immediately followed by a disastrous war to pacify the periphery, and throughout administered via gross violations of international trust between supposedly peer states. But for the most part, there was peace.
It's kind of like, I mean, in reality, like the description might seem like wordy as hell to some of you, and like he's kind of like going through it, but it's just kind of the comparison of like those who create their own narrative to when power's involved, and using that narrative to push their own agenda, which causes it to be almost the chaotic like energy of what's going on, right? So he himself is discussing about the factor of like, oh, we created these, like, yes, I created like a lot of like the mech and technology used within the golden age, right? Well, the golden age star thing. The additional words after. But like in addition to that, I don't be associated with the other aspect, which is the political side, which kind of like is this whole debauchery of bullshit. And it's like, yeah, the outcome is like peace, but peace is only temporary for those who understand that when you create such an unstable dynamic, that nothing is truly right.
The womb in which
viable.
the Charger was born was this vast, unprecedented period of peacetime, where military operations were at best border skirmishes to clap the latest warlord uprising, and with no real enemies and no peer threat to actually test your ideas against to be proven wrong, you can build whatever you want, so long as the customer buys it. And so, you have the background of events I feel frame the Charger's origin. However, there was...
I want the biggest mitten. You give me footsies and a big mitten that I can put a chainsaw attachment to. That's what I like to fucking say.
one less lens to
On
bring
my
this to a
Charger.
clear focus. Is to purchase something like the Charger, let alone full production runs of it, is a curious choice in an age of plenty and peace. However, I feel I have to clarify at this juncture, as you may have already guessed, the Golden Age is not pure. It is an era of few wars and relative peace. There are, as many know, oceans of bodies between those definitions in any era. And after the reunification war, we enter this strange, artificially maintained, relative peace. And then things got interesting.
Got it.
By 2605, the Star League Defense Forces left the Taurian Concordat after policing
It's interesting too because like calling something like relative peace in like regards to like how many people die and like what's actually been like blood being drawn is that history is only remarked as whatever has been told to be carried throughout. So it's like realistically, those who win the battle or those even within a situation like a standoff, like those that would seem like they're peaceful, can be like retold in whichever way they wish to for the future, right? Unless you have those who could actually surpass its length. But when you're in such like factions that could brainwash you with the source material that you're actually being fed, you know, it causes like what the situation we're currently in is.
for a bit. Turns out you can't just say you win. The enemy has to agree or they will keep shooting at you every time you leave your bunker.
Fair?
The Star League Defense Forces didn't understand that. So I suppose that the daily human body cost to keep Starleague flags on flagpoles at full mast unburned in the Concordat was beginning to affect the overall recruiting pool, so they left. By 2620, Amanda Amaris became the second president of the RimWorld's Republic, promising, of course, a full return to democratic elections. She was murdered that same year in what I'm sure are unrelated circumstances, but I feel perhaps an interesting beginning of what would be a power struggle in the near term, and greater challenges later on, as we well know. Some would say the so-called good years of this golden age, in which the Charger was designed alongside many other great classic mechs, started at the end of what is politely called reunification. For the record, I think that's fairly revisionist, not in the professional sense, but a personal one. If you asked people of an occupied, war-scarred nation if the good times started when the war ended, I think they'd look up at you with hurt in their eyes and then introduce you to real hardship, because nobody likes an ugly tourist. In my opinion, the good years truly begin in 2623 with the Starleague central bank and currency system, allowing trade from one end of the sphere to the other in good faith in one denomination. With this came enormous opportunity for anyone with guts and assets to gamble, as
Okay, so like centralized
with open markets
currency,
and unparalleled access to resources across the sphere, it was soon an economic boom the likes of which none had ever seen. It was a good time for most. That's why they called it the good years, and for the inner sphere, they pretty much were. I have an opinion on that which I feel may be unpopular among the great houses, but I am a periphery historian with a clan or ex-wife, and regret is not a theme of this lecture, so I'll say this. I, for one, think we called it the good years because, in my opinion, it was the point at which the great houses were most frustrated. And seeing the sort of shit they pull when they're—
It's kind of cool because like the narration itself is like a bit contrarian to like what is being expressed. So it's like, oh, rather than having the perspective of the great houses and being like, oh, the time that's like one of the best times would have started from when the war ends. But it's like, no, we're taking from the humanitarian perspective and the conflict of which itself, rather than thinking of the perspective of what the powers are currently feeding to the people and how the histories were wrote for that. And it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool perspective to not be like given like the hand-fed ones that would have been passed down through your history books if you were to be like living in this world, right? Oh,
empowered fully and completely unchecked, it was probably a good thing by default. And I feel the good years truly stop with 2 executive orders and a council edict. It is in fact these 3 political events in sequence that are the why of the Charger and every other single procurement decision the Starleague Defense Forces ever made, until an exceptionally violent private unboxing ceremony put an end to it.
And then there was Amaris.
While the Golden Age was good for most, the great houses were in fact, after the reunification, not happy at all about having diminished power under the Starleague. As such, the Great House Lords, the very few people supposedly imbued with enough wisdom to understand the benefits of the Security Cooperation Initiative, which they themselves had signed and shaped, tried to limit the growth of the SLDF by preventing recruitment in their territories, because that's what adults do. So Executive Order 34 fixed that, in theory, for a time. It patched the problem, at least until new ones arrived, which they soon did. The states of the Capellan Confederation, the Draconis Combine, suggested that the bulk of those volunteering for military service in the SLDF were criminals fleeing the law of their respective states, which was true. It absolutely was. If you consider honest criticism of the government and freely expressing your opinions in public a punishable crime.
Thank you. I'm like, what the fuck? Alicia visibly angry, rolling her eyes, and I'm like, there's no way he's agreeing with that. There's no way. I feel good. I feel good now. I feel good. I'm good. I'm chilling. Alicia's about to go on a mini rant, and we're good. We're good. Thank you for the. Thank you. We're good.
Executive Order 35 fixed that problem by saying that those so-called fleeing criminals would, if caught, be then swiftly remanded for prosecution, but under Starleague law. I see it as this: if the executive orders were the setup, the Council Edict of 2650 is the punchline. Strategically, these 2 acts furthered the SLDF as the sole legitimate unified Leviathan force in the inner sphere by manpower alone. But some people are not paying attention to a single word I'm saying, because all they heard was me say Amaris earlier. Alright, so, the Amaris family. We talked about them before. I made a list. The least of their sins was ruining Venus because they didn't understand how hard space was. They also ruined many other things. for other reasons. Then Kerensky retired him, and that was that. But the Amaris family has a long and storied history. And in this context, I must say that the founding member of that house, as a ruler of the Rimworld's Republic, was, prior to that, a member of a foreign intelligence unit, empowered during a time of exceptional national and international crisis that later and suddenly retired to the periphery, who then suddenly befriended and then somehow replaced the head of an existing dynasty for all time. It's, well, very interesting, I'll say that. And as evidence, the family has an interesting theme, so coincidence is a very...
Oh my god, besties! Oh my god, I love just smooching. Oh my god. Hold on, I got this. It's not smooching. Schmoozing! I got it. Schmoozing! Holy fuck. I'm so sorry. To be fair though, it is 5 a.m. I was like, it's not smooching. My brain couldn't get out of that. And I'm like, no, we don't kiss the homies. No, wait, that's not what I meant. They love schmoozing and slowly taking power. Woo! We love creeping our ways into other families' aristocracy and smiting them down as we take hold of the footholds of the society. Yes, we love it.
very uncomfortable word to use as a historian in this case. In 2650, the Star League Council heard some interesting news. In a 3-month window, the Rimworld Republic, under the leadership of an Amaris, had gone from 8 regiments of mechs to 15. This was problematic. The 2 executive orders had, in theory, made the SLDF the sole force of power in the Inner Sphere, and yet here was an invested statement to the opposite effect. And as this is the Inner Sphere, if the other state noticed, they'd do likewise. Star League regulations be damned. While the SLDF...
I'm so sorry, I got distracted by someone saying if schmoozing is outlawed, then smooching is okay. I hate y'all motherfuckers. I'm gonna go back a little bit. Just a second. There you go.
In theory, made the SLDF the sole force of power in the Inner Sphere, and yet here was an invested statement to the opposite effect. And as this is the Inner Sphere, if the other state noticed, they'd do likewise. Star League regulations be damned. While the SLDF was truly mighty, it wasn't bigger than everyone combined, and it could not be everywhere at once. So rather than sending the SLDF into the periphery, which likely drew oceans of cold sweat from the officer classes who'd actually studied the last dust-up, the Star League decided to bury the whole issue with a new law. And this law changed how many weapons each great house could have. And as you might guess, that number was going to be less than the Star League Defense Force's stockpile.
Oh, shit.
Your initial reaction is not wrong, as yes, it was a stopgap, and an imperfect one. It was an unwelcome addition to an unbalanced equation. This edict in theory prevented war, but it was a dream. A dream based on the SLDF of being able to do all the things at once, and if they failed, die trying to save the state. And to their credit, most of them did. But I've already told their tragedy in full. It is from this very place that the charger comes from. With the great houses agreeing to the Edict of 2650, even if grumbling, peace was a guarantee in writing, backed by the Star League dollar, held in check with the SLDF. And with one stroke of the pen, the Star League Defense Force was by now, by default, the largest prime customer of all war material in the Inner Sphere.
Holy
If you made
shit.
weapons, your choice was clear. You could fill SLDF procurement contracts, or you could go out of business. As you'd expect, with all the money in one giant bucket and a prolonged peace, you have the exact recipe for what made the Charger. It was born in a world that was new and crazy and never sustainable. To prevent the loss of jobs, prestige, or to deliberately
You
frustrate...
forgot this about a charger. I mean, yeah, we had some build up. We had some build up for show. Also, since we're like randomly in a different part of the video now, because you probably skipped the intro, you little sick bastard, don't forget to get the original. The original video is linked in the description for this one, and support that. Give it a like, leave it a comment, all that good stuff. Be like the Rat Queen sent me here if you can't think of anything. And yeah, I would really appreciate it if you support the original too. And while you're here, you know what it is. You know what it is, baby. I upload every single day. I do reactions, gameplay, all that good shit. Can't skip this. It's in the middle of the video. Stupid. It's probably actually near the beginning of it, to be honest. It'll be a long video.
Attempts. the Star League was now buying everything in vast quantities in perpetuity. Even in such a uniquely competitive environment, the Charger still stands out as odd, as though purchased sight unseen. The Charger rolls off the line in 2665, the same year as the Awesome, and yet the Charger isn't. To understand why, we must now sift the ashes of destroyed worlds to get a picture of the company that first put 80 tons and Scout in the same sentence, and then somehow sold it.
Is it weird to... I don't know if this is weird or not. I like the idea of learning more about the economics over the years than I do about the actual machinery. Is that weird of me? For just like things that like I find interesting 101. I don't know if that's weird or not. But I'm like, okay, cool. Like but I'm like, because like that, like, the economics of how you build like an entire like world-based building is like so fucking awesome to me. And it's like, ooh, you brought in like the logistics, the political side. Like you have me. It's like, okay, I'm cool with like mech shit. Why not? Like, I mean, I'm more so recently. I've been recently getting into more mech stuff. It's actually because of Gundam, because I watched Gundam Witcher Mercury, which I've never seen. Like, I mean, I've seen like Code Geass, for example, which has mechs in it. It's not very mech based. It's more psychological, and like political as well. And then I watched like Gundam Witcher Mercury, which I absolutely loved. And I was like, dude, I fuck with mechs pretty heavy. I just never really gave it a chance, right? And then I was like, oh, cool. Like they have like, because like they asked me to like watch one of their videos, and they'll donate $50 to charity. And I was like, okay, well, let me just like pick one out. And they like recommended this one and a few other ones. And this one was about like mechs, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, let's do this one. And they were telling me how it displays a lot of talents within the BattleTech community. Which I was like, oh, that's even cooler. Let's do this. So that's the reason why we're checking out this one in particular. But yeah, I mean, it's cool because it also gives me like more insight to like how like the evolution of how it even came to be versus it just being kind of like, anyways, here's a mech. So let's talk about how cool it is. Like it's okay, cool. Like we get the full part that gets me engaged into something versus just being kind of spat out, which is nice because I'm more into the world building aspect of things more than I am into just like being spat at for information. So they do a good job. Ooh, who in the actual hell is Wells Technologies? There we go. I forgot to read that part. Chapter 3.
Here begins the incredibly problematic history of Wells Technologies, which is very hard because at no point did Wells Technologies ever think about the future. From what I can find, any success they made was, well, more a product of their time than their actual industrial capabilities. What survives today in any totality is a decent record of...
Sorry, I just gonna address one thing. I wouldn't say that it's like low budget Gundam. I would say that Gundam's world building is just extremely different. Like they both have mechs, sure, but like at the end of the day, you're going from like one like because Gundam's like geopolitical powers are involved a lot in the futuristic element in a different way, where this has a lot more of like resets with like political strife causing the de-evolution. So like such as like a bunch of like attacks happening, thus like their even like their economy stability happening. It wasn't something that was like organically there, but rather like they had to have like their decentralizing of currencies, which would cause it to have a centralizing later on, which is why they mentioned earlier on about like 2623, like the year 2623, like how that was when they started to enter into like the good era, considering like when things were starting to get better for them, for like the previous narrator. So it's like when you consider things like that versus Gundam, where Gundam, I find like a lot of their world building is still extremely politically based. Don't get me wrong. Like still extremely politically based, but rather than being about resets, it's about either the discrimination or the total complete annihilation of another faction or group. Thus they're able to like implement something to that's the next step. And it's always about the evolution of something rather than the de-evolution of things, which is pretty cool. So it's like it's a very different perspective when going into world building. But I think they both do their own version of it well, rather than being like a simplistic version of one another, right?
Wells HQ and its place in history are modest fragments, but that's what happens when we bomb ourselves into continually shorter versions of the history book.
All right, motherfucker. Sometimes I just shouldn't talk. I'll be like, oh, let's let the video make my point. Fuck it, I guess.
I did say successive editions of the history book because that joke is too obvious. Moving on, we must ask ourselves, why is a company that made such a product which everyone knows essentially a ghost corporation, A corporation with no background and near zero track record of success or failure in any means we can measure aside from a single flawed product. After all, it's very normal when a large corporation makes a dud or a poor product because usually they make enough of it for everyone to point and laugh at, and when contrasted against their other factually better products, they stand out. And there are plenty of other terrible mech designs that were never mass-produced, and so they slip beneath our notice, unless serving as academic comparison. But the Charger, they made a full run of it. For a nobody like Wells Technologies to somehow succeed in the market, that's very interesting. I cannot tell you much more about Wells Technologies other than they were, and they aren't anymore, and that their mechs and manufacturing lines still survive today. But after thoroughly examining the machine as designed, some details do emerge as to company practices and internal decisions currently lost to historical record. Firstly, nothing on the Charger is truly sophisticated. This was not brilliantly engineered. It is a Big Mech with the then biggest possible engine you could put in.
The subtitle said Big Mac, and there's typos in the subtitles. Don't worry, it's just closed captions, so just ignore them half the time. I just do it for people who like sometimes have a harder time, like with like comprehending me and the video at the same time. So I usually keep CCs on, but sometimes the CCs are funny as fuck. So Big Mac is kind of goes hard.
In it. And that's it. The old ones almost look as though they're made out of castings and straight angles for cheap as hell mass manufacture or to be fixed with hand tools between battles. If one were very bold, they'd see the Charger and go, this is an upscaled industrial mech for moving large or perhaps hazardous objects, and considering Wells Technologies' experience in mech design being essentially zero, that is a fair guess as any.
Okay,
but
yeah.
It is just a guess. However, every design choice present on the initial model was made on purpose, deliberately, because the market was, at this point, the SLDF demanding everything. The Charger is like a blank platform to fill a checkbox and never see actual use. So unless Wells Technologies itself is an elaborate hoax or a fully wagered bet between eccentric industrialists to see what the government would buy in bulk sight unseen, Wells did this on purpose thinking it was very smart, or more correctly in acceptable industry jargon, billable. Considering they were purchased in a good number, they weren't wrong. Any further clarification from Wells Technologies headquarters is impossible at this point, as a variety of factors erase them completely from history, and I cannot deny, I suspect perhaps by a specific client. I'll get to that later. But whatever secrets they held and whatever decisions they made in detail will forever be a mystery. As far as Wells is and was, I believe they were more a crack team of accountants than visionary engineers. As we move past Wells to examining the machine in further detail, I will attempt to explain the Charger and its continued battlefield evolution despite an ill-fated birth from a company so colossally stupid that it succeeded at erasing itself from our linear measure of existence.
You know what? Sometimes I'm glad I just let them spit. Because, like, I was going to pause maybe 30 seconds before that and be like, just like super hindsight Andy of me. But I was be like, you know what? Like, it's kind of brilliant because we talked about earlier about how, like, I don't know. Dude, I'm just going to end up repeating exactly what he said. So, you know what? That is what it is. Semper Mollis.
Nearly every mainstream published opinion on this simple but awkward monstrosity describes it as nothing short of a total failure. As to why...
Also, god damn, the art in this is so good. I know chat was saying it earlier. I just want to say it again, though, because I know y'all were talking about how great it is. It's so good. Every aspect, the little touches. One thing I liked a lot earlier on was the transitions they were using, too. I think a nice little shutter sound effect for their switching slides, because it feels like they're switching slides and like an overhead projector almost. It was really nice.
Opinions differ. Some will
like,
say
right,
it's
they're
a
still
failure
doing it,
in
obviously,
military
but yeah,
doctrine,
it
and
is
that
nice.
heavy recon has always been a crapshoot. Some will say it's a failure in design. Some will say it's a failure in concept, or even, as I suggested, sobriety. From any way you slice it, though, this is not a refined tool of war. This is in fact a sledgehammer being sold as a scalpel. It's sold as heavy recon, which is to find, harass, and survive contact with the enemy. And to do that, they made this. The stock model CGR 1A1, 80 Star League tons of grade A Star League stupid, or graft, or madness.
Hold on, I just want to. One small laser, another small laser, yet another small laser, more small laser. Yup, small laser. Okay. I thought that was actually gonna list off weapons. I went into reading that thinking that it had alternate weapons. I feel like a dumbass. I went into that read. Man! Why'd I bother pausing? I might play.
Depending on the argument. What I've found, however, only reinforces my argument that, again, this was built this way on purpose. The chassis, why, that's proprietary to Wells, of course. Its tracking, targeting, and communication systems are forgettable marginal commercial products. The targeting system is likely just a bigger version of the one they put on the Urban Mech. It is cheap to manufacture aside from the power plant, which is horrendously expensive and thus subcontracted, and they charged a hell of a lot for it. It's more expensive than an Awesome, plus parts. It has 10 tons of armor, 10 heat sinks, and 5 weapons. What weapons on an assault mech? 5 lasers, small ones. Some models put this in a pistol mount for the hands so you can awkwardly hold up a bank to pay for the fact that you bought a charger instead of an Awesome. And then there's the engine. Well, how else do you make an assault mech go fast in the 2600s? Wells solved the problem by bolting in the biggest, most expensive mass-produced engine put into a mech at that point. It is a committed, subcontracted design line for one application. The mighty LTV 400 began as the charger power plant. So don't worry, it can do 86.4 kph all day. And perhaps not much else. It's as big as a building, lightly armed, durable.
It feels stupid. It feels so stupid. Please tell me we develop better than this. Please tell me we develop better than this. Oh my god. Okay.
And mostly easy to repair, as aside from the engine, there was really nothing of value to break. At this juncture, some people will try and say it's a cavalry mech. But cavalry, historically or in the modern sense, typically has a function of stacking bodies and taking heads. Hence symbols like this being common in their lineage. And cavalry is usually capable of running an enemy down, harassing and killing them at leisure, and then disengaging at will.
Okay, disengaging at will doesn't fully work for cavalry, though. We've learned this time and time again that upon exit, these motherfuckers die. So I feel like we have the same issue with these motherfucking chargers, man. Oh, they fast as heck in their biggest buildings. Oh yeah, but we got like, how many issues? Hello? Hello?
Typically, cavalry shows up to a fight firstest with the mostest and then gets murdered until the rest of the army shows up or doesn't.
Right?
The mech had the speed of it, but no real firepower, and no ability to accomplish forward observation or adequately relay anything it discovered.
What? You mean the 5 baby lasers in its little blicky weren't enough? No, you're kidding. Like, what the fuck?
It in fact lacked all of those necessary systems, so people's opinion then changes, and they then find it to be a scout. But the charger
Which, actually, with its level of speed, it being a scout could make sense. Wait, that could work. Hold on.
not capable of reporting back substantially more
Never mind. It's not capable of reporting back substantial information. Never mind. Fuck that, I guess. My bad. I got excited for no reason. Great.
information than anyone with binoculars and a radio. There is a minority opinion, one I hold in fact, that this mech was intended for a specific operations footprint and tempo, one best contextualized by the strangeness of the Golden Age itself.
Dude, what if we
And
just
in the
turn them into
Golden Age,
fucking suicide bomber mechs? Like, scrap everything else. We make them, like, just kamikaze they shit, but at an accelerated pace. Don't expect it to come back. Fuck it. Right? Listen, we can commit war crimes. Fuck them. Right? In the name of a war.
large-scale conflict was theory at best, as the Hobbesian Leviathan was alive and well and being fed regular police actions.
Ew.
But there was grumbling. There were riots, and in the dark, far from common eyes, there were quiet wars burning away at the pillars of state. In counterinsurgency operations, you don't necessarily need high-tech.
I hate that one motherfucker in chat goes, no, that would make it useful. It's true, there can't be war crimes if no one survives to accuse you. That's my fucking point, bitch. Listen, no one said that we're using nukes anymore. I know we all have nuke capabilities, but no one's using them right now. But regular bombing? High grade explosives? Before our units even come in to back up? Oh, true. Winning does mean you get to dictate the laws, though. That is true. Whoever wins war gets to dictate everything. How the story's retold, the laws involved, everything. You get to shape whatever political power you just gained out of winning.
Weapons. Just a boot. A reasonably fast, easily repaired, easily modified boot. A big ass-kicking boot to come in and put the fear of God into people for deigning to have opinions on things.
Oh, okay.
Or threatening your police
Never
force
mind.
or raiding your supply
Don't love
lines.
this boot. Bad boot.
In relative peacetime, one of the single most attractive margins in the military-industrial complex is trainer, /light attack, /counterinsurgency platform. It's a checkbox in the military portfolio for the everything else aspect of war that strategic war planners don't like to think about, or plan for, or acknowledge, or learn from. And yet, it is a capability
The line
they
delivery's
pay
so good.
enormously for, often at the last moment, and out of impulse or desperate need. Wells Tech was many things, but they certainly knew their client. The Charger wasn't for war, at least not the sort of war you see broadcast. The Charger was for dirty war, if any. It was potentially an okay trainer for heavier mech pilots because it wasn't heavily armed, or hard to repair, and fairly cheap to restore should they accidentally drive one into a building or 20. But
Or 20.
it is deeply flawed even in this mission profile. At 7.5 million C-bills, the Charger as sold is a million C-bills more expensive than an Awesome. Not long after its introduction, the SLDF withdrew the Charger on grounds of its general crapness, and soon after Wells Technologies was in deep shit as a result of the rampant overproduction.
Oh, really? Oh, you don't say, Wells Technology. Oh, yeah, you were fucking irrelevant before. Said, oh, let's make some squeesh, bitch. And then you went, oh shit, we're still fucked. Really? You don't say, buddy. Like,
grossly overinflated sales projections. As such, I believe the Charger would have been forgotten entirely, like the Baron and many other things, as an oddity of the distant past, if it weren't for a petty disagreement over who sat in a damn chair.
isn't that what it all comes down to at the end of the day, though, when it comes to the factions? Or who sits in a damn chair half the time for any political power, or for any even like company power? Chapter 5. It can always get worse. Oh, please tell me these little fucks don't get worse. Oh, tell me the Chargers get better, bro. Tell me the Chargers get better. Please, the evolution of their development, please.
I'll get to the succession wars in time, but the abbreviated context is thus. The great and mighty noble lords of the great houses of the inner sphere fought over the chair they weren't adult enough to realize was an inherently broken power apparatus that destroyed all who sat in it. They had watched the literal sword of Damocles destroy the Camerons, and then desired it all the same. The argument over that one stupid chair and the ruinous power it held then escalated all the way to nukes. As a cultural and historical context, the succession wars are what happens in the inner sphere when you try to hold things together by force, and then remove that binding force, just for those curious. Sheer destruction aside, it's reasonable to say it did a number on mechs. Full theater strategic response meant that any industrial plant larger than a backyard shed was now a viable war target. All those peacetime great ideas, and all the bad ones, were mobilized and sent to the front, without much, if any, calculated restraint. In many cases, machines and crews were
The thing that would interest me the most is what machines do you have that could literally sustain or live through nukes? Right? Nuclear warfare. And not just single nuke, multiple nukes. And it's like, that's the kind of like ingenuity that I would be interested in.
were expended for little to no
As a
long-term
person,
gain.
I'm sorry, I didn't finish
Many
my sentence there.
complicated designs fell victim to catastrophic issues as just-in-time replenishment concepts were challenged by things like the factory disappearing, or the final assembly plant now lacking a breathable atmosphere. As things got worse, mechs were increasingly thrown into desperate gambles and sacrificed to stabilize fronts, or lastly, severely reduced in common frontline service as crippled industrial complexes were thrown into chaos trying to figure out how to replace anything with anything at all. Mechs,
Variable bullets stay only from far away, but battleships and heavy cruisers survived. My problem is though is that like even if the machinery lasts itself was like needing a pilot is kind of one of the essential parts. Like, is it enough to like actually with the holder inside of these chargers or inside of like any of these capabilities to still be able to withstand the exposure? Or would they still not be able to? And just the machinery itself would survive? Because that's still an issue. Even at distance. Right? Because they talked about that in relation to the factories, where it's no longer breathable for them to work, and like those are all gone. Right? So that means that we clearly don't have the capability to sustain, even through nuclear warfare. Right? Also missing something else that's like a different development that they made that I'm not sure of.
Even bad ones like the Charger were thrown in and held the line against all odds or died trying. The succession wars would know few old pilots, though it would produce many bold ones.
Enter the squared circle. I'm sorry, the what?
Many recoil at the thought, but there is seldom such a thing as a fair fight. However, some people don't see a problem in having a fight against overwhelming odds. Some people, on faith, pure insanity, or balls, are willing to roll those dice and see what...
I took a drink of coffee at the wrong time. I took a sip of my coffee when he said, or balls. And listen, I know I'm in my late 20s. But someone just saying very calmly, or balls, will never not be funny to me.
It lands where, because what's the worst that can happen? You're already there and the fight is now. And maybe running away sounds exhausting. So for whatever reason, there is the challenge, and some will always rise to meet it. It shouldn't terribly surprise you that the succession wars had a lot of crazy. Showering warheads on populations like Mardi Gras beads does that to people.
Yeah,
so don't judge too harshly with the lens of here and now. These were wild years for
Ooh, bestie. I am a judgy bitch, though. Bestie. That's what I do. But it's okay. I will judge with the lens of here and now because it's fun. But go off.
humanity, and people were just trying to make it. Civilization was, for all intents and purposes, along for the ride. With the succession wars destroying starships, their dockyards, and the continual raising of technology bases, the great armies on offense or defense had one option really, with such catastrophic shortages of strategic material, which is make do. And without the surety of plentiful mech support, the ground forces of the inner sphere opened the old infantry manuals and went to work. Soon, everything to them was an artillery target, and everything bigger than 4-stack bricks they pointed artillery at. Anything that looked like a mech, let alone a big one, got the full treatment. And any place that might hide life, they erased one fire support mission at a time, one grid square at a time. Mechs weren't gone, but it was far easier to put a man or woman in boots than replace a continent-sized industrial chain and all of the...
It's so cool because it's literally like the regression
subject matter
of how
experts that made it function.
Of how
and
far
full
we
strategic
developed.
mobilization does its own wonders to warfare. So infantry did then what all infantry do when time gets hard. They dug a hole and they started stacking bodies. If anything other than infantry showed up, these weapons were their patron saints. The Demolisher, the SRM Carrier, the Manticore. The Demolisher in particular...
Nah, hold up. I'm sorry, if I ever saw... Hold up. If I ever saw this ship pull up...
Carrier, the Manticore.
And then his brother pull up... Nah, bestie. Nah, bestie. How many guns do you need on your vehicle? No, keep adding different ones till I'm satisfied. Alright, do you want this type of shell or this type of shell? Scooter, hook me up with all the types of shells you got, buddy. Alright, I'll give you different arsenal. Don't you worry, bestie. Like, look at this shit. The answer is yes. Got it. Copy that.
The Demolisher in particular made most mechs go away with twin AC-20s and frequently in a majestic double tap. From the time you saw the Demolisher to the time it fired was the full run of your life in most cases. When mechs got more scarce, the Demolisher and things like it scoured the battlefield mercilessly, and often augmented by combined arms units nearby and some terrifyingly heavy artillery, It was a bad time to drive a mech, or any big target, let alone an 80-ton assault mech with woefully inadequate ranged weapons, crap sensors, shit comms, and a big cockpit window.
Yeah,
Tanks like
fair.
the Demolisher were a centerpiece in this era for a damn reason. They work. They kill things very dead, very quickly. But such brief, if inherited, primacy would not last, because there is a fairly awkward weapon system that can, if a pilot is crazy enough, stumble into, take a hit from, and then say hi to a Demolisher. This same system can then waffle stomp it into 2 dimensions. It can then find that one last guy who survived and decide whether or not to punt him back to his own lines before disappearing, war crimes unexplained, fading into the fog of war like a cryptid made of dying men's nightmares. Pressed into frontline service, second-rate mechs like the Charger were the only functional reminder of why mechs were scary, or even relevant. The Charger and its many equally poor second-rate friends went to war when there was nothing else. And amazingly, it survived. Mech warriors assigned to second-rate machines like the Charger were considered frontline and thus expendable. Charger pilots were repeatedly run into guns, mechs, defenses, and naturally, most of the pilots did not come back.
I'm just saying. We load a bomb into them. I'm still down for that. I'm just saying, right? It's like, even if you give them the expectation that they'll come up back, give them a fail-safe button where they just blow the fuck up. You know? Because even if you can't, like, right? Because even if their machine gets destroyed, maybe it'll cause still an explosion or something.
At least not the same as they had been before. The mechs, however, usually survived just fine. As far as why they were so consistently crazy, well, Succession Wars era pilots as a whole were a combination of
No, chat. You need bigger boom. Their fusion reactor's not enough. If they can still be destroyed and then still be standing and still have remnants of what they are, what we need is something bigger booms. We've got bigger booms. I know we do. Now die for the big boom. Excellent.
alcohol poisoning, TBI scars, and a healthy dusting of alpha particle ash. If the notion of a functionally better battle mech crossed what was left of their mind,
the brain dead chatter who comes in and goes, "Mom, when's this video over?" That's you. Look at this shit. No brains. No nothing. Just a fucking limp ass torso sweating your ass in the chair. Look at you. You sick fuck.
it was folly to ever hope for a better tomorrow, let alone a desirable outcome. During the Succession Wars, they discovered, at the bottom of the strategic bucket, there are things you frequently overlook, like the Charger, and they'll frequently do when there is nothing else. With the Succession Wars rapidly removing better choices, House Kurita bailed out the near-bankrupt Wells Technologies and bought their entire, unsold, previously unwanted stockpile of Chargers. They even made Wells build a line at Luthian to supposedly enhance and contribute to domestic mech industry. This would result in its own problems, but
okay, Wells Technology. I mean, they kind of already fell apart, so like whatever they bought, it was not definitely just not at value whatsoever. Especially now that we've advanced to the point where people are just using artillery constantly, and mech battles aren't seen as super viable. But the Charger themselves are seen as to be durable enough to be somewhat viable. I get that, but like, so much for your profits, bitch. Eat shit, Wells.
during the Succession Wars, any weapon that worked was frequently good enough. And doctrine-wise, Kurita had no issue running pilots into a meat grinder until either exceptional pilots prevailed or there were no more mechs to worry about.
Oh.
And as easily repaired, Chargers fit that doctrine very well. As such, the Charger of the Succession Wars is, in every likelihood, this rusty, dented kaiju of a war machine that's burned up 20 pilots in 6 months, which may come charging in at any time to escort you and your home team into the afterlife, or explode gloriously in the process. And this cycle would continue until the Charger produced a hero or became a very brief and very dirty star. Once upon a time,
so they did explode, but we give it more explosive capability, so every time. I guess you do want to keep your talented pilots, though. Just have it be a failsafe option every time, right? Because it does go boom. But what if you had an intention of it going boom and cause chain reactions with it? Because we talked about the reactor earlier, right? A little of both. Oh.
Likened such tragic heroes to Cervantes' own Don Quixote, suggesting that they were another age of hilariously tragic figures playing at heroes, tilting at windmills, and pretending they were saving the world. I can't really comment on whether art or life is more surreal here, but I can say this. Somewhere in the hell of Fourth Succession Wars, where better mechs were slain by the score, somewhere in the fury of no ammo, no logistics, no spares, no reinforcements, somewhere in that realm of pure madness, where you are out of everything but the goddamn enemy, second stringers like the Charger started to take back the battlefield in small part by clumsily throwing hands. Just when people thought mechs were about done, the Charger showed up and punched them into the ground or died trying.
Chargers are the drunk uncles of mechs. Am I wrong? Spot the lie. Feel like I nailed it. Don't say me, chat. God. Don't be a drunk uncle. What the fuck?
I personally feel this crazy cycle kept mechs relevant in this era. It suggested that any mech was potentially better than none. And if boldly piloted to near certain doom, it suggested that a mech was a game changer in the right, if crazy, hands. Because to some people, the rare few dreamers, those few Charger pilots, the 1 in 10,000, they don't see the world like we do. To them, well, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. And they believe that anyone can be a real warrior of the wasteland, the Ayatollah of rock and roller, the cream of the crop, the hammer of justice, the people's elbow, that you, noble wasteland mech warrior, can walk into the consecrated holy
Holy shit, this is the most American rant I've heard in my fucking life. Holy shit. Ain't no way he's not saying the people's elbow in there. Oh, hell no.
Mech warfare, like the third monkey on the plank up Noah's Ark, and brother, it's starting to rain.
He said, brother, it's
Unleashed
starting to
as
rain.
such, the Charger is an assault
Holy
mech designed
shit.
for getting in close and then reminding people that being beat to death with your own limbs is always a legitimate concern to have in a war zone.
That is
Without
true.
the encumbrance of weapons or any delicate anything to worry about, and being very fast and very big, the Charger was in many ways almost perfect for this incredibly barbaric age of war.
Oh, people who are confused in chat, I got you. Are you ready? For those of you watching the video who might have gotten lost during this, mechs. That good? You caught up? Mechs. You're welcome. What the fuck? You missed like 40 minutes of the video. I can't do much else for you, okay? That's all you get. Alright? And listen, if you're lost and you're confused, mechs go burr. Alright? Fair? Fair? And when you're confused, just start typing burr in chat. B-R-R-R. Burr. There you go. Acts like you know what's happening. Alright? Woo! Boom! Burr! Whoa! Whenever you get confused.
A mech that was fast enough to chase down just about anything could absolutely, if the pilot were crazy enough, run around the battlefield punching things until they died, or everything else did. It was a magic time to be alive in the inner sphere. And by surviving long enough, the Charger reminds studious mech experts that survival isn't about being best, but rather actually surviving.
Ain't no way that's the middle finger. Oh, hell no.
As well on this topic, I find that the Charger is maligned frequently by newer pilots as they experience the machine through limited simulations or simulators that expressly forbid melee combat, as though
I really could have gaslit the chat, man. Someone just walked in being like, I straight up, this was a war documentary. I really could have. Remember earlier when I said I wanted to gaslight every person who comes in and gets confused into thinking this is an actual documentary? Dude, people keep walking in being confused, thinking it's real. And I'm just like, oh man, I really should have done it. God damn. I could have fucked with so many people. God, what a miss. Oh man. I didn't want to be a dickhead. But also a part of me wanted to.
the modern mech warrior is too genteel.
We should really
for
hold
such
him back. You guys
brutish
are lucky today.
pugilism. That or their employer doesn't want them to know that you can throw hands at 80 tons. And ugly as it is, awkward fistfights in the dark, that kind of war that happens when you don't have better next-gen anything because even food is hard to find.
Yeah.
The kind of savage war when you're lucky to have a weapon, any weapon, at your disposal. It's a dirty way of war shaped by the lack of material rather than depending on its forever abundance.
Yeah.
It's a way of war where the only way to stop you is to kill you completely. The realization that multi-mission capable machines mean jack and shit if they don't work brought the military affairs people down into the mud. It showed people what war was outside a lecture hall. It showed people what war was when all the promises of uninterrupted supply chain.
Exactly. Oh, you want your pretty ass fancy wars with all your gadgets and gizmos fully optimized? Oh, with unlimited ammunition like when you were practicing and you thought that was acceptable? Oh, when your hopes and dreams prior to the war engaging made you dream of fantastical things to throw into the front line? Oh, those? Dead. Now, we fight with fisticuffs. Mech fisticuffs. Also, hi, Makari.
Chains and force integration gets tested by somebody who thinks all your plans are bullshit and has the army to back it up. The dark days of the succession wars reminded war planners of why mechs were necessary, even bad ones, so long as they worked most of the time. As far as the long-lasting effect of the conflicts in military planning, I will offer this. Though now largely blamed for proposing courses of action, procurement, force design, and operations plans that realistically burn several hundred generations of human progress to cinders, I estimate the generals on the line fared somewhat better than their soldiers. I need not remind most of you that the numerous medals you see on any house general's chest were, perhaps once somebody's children. And sadly, there were a lot of medals in those years, but I would say a good number of them might have been charger pilots trying to figure out how to make the damn thing work. And perhaps a few more were those who did. While removing its pilots from history by the score, the Charger survived. And because it survived, despite endless action throughout the succession wars, they started to upgrade the damn thing. House Kurita practically had no choice, as they now sat astride a giant production line they bought on impulse when the wars started. And while the Charger wasn't perfect, it came back most of the time. The principal...
You know what? I just came to like the small, like in my head, satisfying moment. You know, I was crying out desperately, like, please tell me the Charger fucking improves. It does make sense for like a time in which like things have started to regress and the finality of everything is very like unstable due to like the lack of like just pure monetary backing that we have currently because of the lack of supply. Of course the Charger would fucking thrive in this environment. Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, take away all the pretty shit in war, and the Chargers out there are still fucking dudes. Listen, it might be inaccurate as a bitch, but, you know, it's got one meaty paw in there. What is it called? Something mitten? So it's got one mitten in there doing its thing. Like, fucking hell, dude. Oh, man. Upgrading Chargers are actually pretty great. Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point where they're useful, which is actually kind of sick. I still can't get over the... Like, you know what? Them being out of the Wells technology hands is probably great. Because Wells technology was just fucking stupid. They're just stupid.
Then was the same as it is now. Clean the last pilot out of it with a hose, patch the mech up, and go again. And that, I suppose, is the enduring lesson of the conflict. That which survives is often, well, lesser somehow. And I think this feeling of loss is expressed in disgust pinned on the mech that managed to live when the good people in them generally did not. As a symbol of pilots forced to do too much with far too little.
See, personally, as a tyrant, let their bodies fall, for pilots mean nothing to me. Yes, let them all die. Anything for my power and wealth and gain. Yes, let the rivers flow with the blood of even my own allies, for I must rise.
And the sacrifices they made to desperately hold the line. The Charger is a harbinger of truly bad times for mech warriors. While that old furious anger in donkeys leading lions is truly righteous, I feel it is entirely misplaced when laid squarely at the feet of this machine. For the Succession Wars, there were better weapon systems in every way, and then
Unmasking the military industrial cryptid. Okay.
as a second-half player for the Succession Wars, there were better weapon systems in every way, and then out of nowhere, a Charger or some other second-rate mech would run up and beat it to death or explode in the process. The Charger was then the personification, one clumsy blow at a time, of how perilously primitive the Succession Wars had become, and yet, in the same sense, an endless symbol of endurance, of Plan B, of having everything go wrong and just throwing down anyways because making the enemy
Of Plan B. Abortions. We abort all of the motherfucking mechs. I'm sorry. I really thought that's what they were going with it. So my brain was kind of like anticipating that. And I was like, oh shit, my bad. Sorry.
shit their pants and cry is more important.
Wait, hold on.
An endless symbol of endurance, of Plan B, of having everything go wrong and just throwing down anyways because making the enemy shit their pants and cry is more important than winning the stupid war anyhow. When Kurita was desperate enough for mechs when the Succession Wars hit full swing, they bought all of the stockpiled Chargers Wells Technologies had mass-produced and immediately threw them into the fray. In close combat, the mech had absolutely annihilated smaller mechs, which constituted most of what the great houses were using to replace attritional losses on a more economic scale. And after a time, the Charger was a combat-proven design that was a reliable, reasonable, low-maintenance weapons platform that could, if pressed into the hands of a select few crazy people, throw down in grand fashion. It was an infantry plow, or an angry dancing god of war that won fistfights in the assault mech range. Or it killed pilots reliably fast enough while keeping the enemy busy enough to find people who could. Because why not?
Yeah.
So let's look at this beast. The 1A1 we've been over. Big engine, 5-hole small lasers.
Yep.
Next, though, is the one that somebody other than the SLDF bought, and I think it shows what the Charger could have been if Wells had any inkling as to the actual military needs of the inner sphere.
Right.
The CGR-1A5 corrected the Charger to a proper assault mech, or at the very least tried to. The Capellans received a crap ton of military assistance and war surplus after the third
Now
success.
this is a bit more of what I'm fucking talking about. Holy shit! The other one's like, hi, I have 5 lasers, and they might be a little inaccurate, but we try our best. Like, oh my god, but we're super fast. Like, oh, holy shit. Thank you. Upgrade this motherfucker, please. I mean, obviously, it's like a different one from the Wells Technologies version, but like, holy fuck, thank god.
War. This meant, as you guessed it, Chargers, lots of them, which they immediately re-engineered into usable frontline mechs. They downgraded the engine to a 320, which is cheaper and far lighter. They removed most of the small lasers and put in an AC-20 because that's always an awesome choice. To round out the weapons, they added 2 SRM-6s and a medium.
I'm sorry. Someone did check us old design. I have 5 laser pointers and a big fist. They're just accurate.
Laser. Also 5 more tons of armor. It was as fast as most assault mechs at the time, while carrying assault mech armor, and was a nasty surprise for anyone who thought the
I'm sorry. I know I'm pausing again, but I just need to read this one too. The small lasers are to blind your enemy before you start hitting them. I'm sorry. The flashbangs of war aren't the move. You like those motherfuckers with those strong-ass little laser pointers that are pointing it up at helicopters. Like, I'm gonna fucking blind the shit out of this fucking pilot. Hold on, bitch. Just causing the most disruptive-ass energy in the world. Motherfucker, what? Hold on. I can get his eyes. I got 5 of these bitches on this. I know it's inaccurate, but I can get it. I know I'm going fast. But you gotta believe.
Confederation lacked assault mechs, let alone good ones. The CGR-1A9 was House Kurita's take on the venerable machine through buying out Wells Technologies to enhance domestic mech industry.
Yeah.
As such, the 1A9 was a Luthian Armor Works refit of the base Charger for heavier frontline combat.
Okay! So, like, literally just the upgraded version of Wells. Okay, yeah, which is fantastic.
The 1A9 bumped the engine rating down to a 320 power plant, much like the Capellan engineers had decided.
Can it go as fast
similarly
anymore
replaced
then?
the small lasers with a mix of useful long and short range
Is it able to still go
weapons,
as fast
like
or
an
no?
LRM-20, medium lasers, and jump jets for added mobility.
Ooh.
A legal fuck up with this model's license.
Okay, because it's kind of cool because if you're using like a smaller like engine compared to before, because before they just slapped the heaviest bad boy they could get in there. They're like, listen, let's get a 4090 in that bitch kind of energy, right? So it's kind of cool to see it's like, okay, well, we're going to focus on other assets such as making it actually combat ready and have an extra like capability of mobility versus just being zoomies.
Production rights would result in it being built subsequently in license
great.
with full technology handover for unlimited
It goes slower, not slow.
production.
Yeah, exactly my point though, right? Is that like it's good to like have that like technically it's not a real downgrade because you like yes, you're going for like a lesser system, but you're able to add other factors of like mobility, which just makes it a way more valuable asset than before.
By Ravina Electronics and the Outworlds Alliance. And that's how assault mechs show up in the periphery in numbers when they really shouldn't have. Thank you, Wells Technologies, so very much. Those pirates were always very manageable. Coincidentally, the original run of the Charger suddenly ended in 3030 because of war profiteering by Wells Technologies illegally reselling battlefield salvage to
Hell
the
yeah,
enemy
I'm
of the
cute.
nation it was
Thanks,
supporting logistically. That's right. After striking it rich and saving themselves from bankruptcy, they resold their license to pirates, then sold weapons through embargo, then finally betrayed their client. And I'm not saying this
Like a classy bitch.
decision beheaded the company or anything, but the result is decisive. Wells is, and then very suddenly, was, or as House Kurita put it, an emergency buyout was exercised, and the Wells corporate board was invited to, quote, dine with their ancestors, which is the very last they're mentioned intact in any history I can find.
Yeah.
The CGR-2A2 is the de facto periphery version. It's definitely a junkyard brawler, and that it has replaced the 5 small lasers of the original with one shitload of rockets and a medium laser to round it out. Why?
Good.
Because the periphery actually has need of a heavy scout. You have one hellacious rocket blast sufficient to alakablam an opponent, and then follow it up with fisticuffs until friends show up. The CGR-3K is the attempted midlife refit by the Draconis Combine for the 1A9, but with an XL engine to bring the top speed back up to where it was at the cost of it now being very, very expensive and fantastically volatile. But this upgrade gives it medium pulse lasers and adds Artemis 4 fire control support. It can also jump 150 meters. All around, not a terrible mech. It's an expensive stopgap solution as a midlife extension for the aging Charger, with most components integrated for no other reason than this fits in a Charger now. These successive iterations at refitting the Charger were not wasted.
Chat, you're so fucking stupid. I love y'all. What a sexy murder bot, honestly. I love y'all. Shut the fuck up. I love y'all. You know what's really sad? Sometimes I get YouTube comments who don't understand my sense of humor. Where like I'll be like, shut up, chat. And they're like, oh my god, stop being so mean to your chat. What? They're just saying funny jokes. You laughed. Like, that's the point. I tell them to shut the fuck up, and I tell them that I love them. It's all the same. Like, me telling you to eat shit and die is the exact same as me telling you I love you. I have no difference between them. And chat knows that. Chat prefers it, actually. So, you know, there you go.
Wasteful, as they gave Kurita insight into successive mech assault design, which would help them later. The CGR-SA5 is in fact the badass hot rod version of the Charger. This bastard has a 320 light fusion engine and is
You are so mean. You paid me money to be mean to you once. What the fuck are you talking about in particular, Aku? I'm pretty sure you gifted me 10 subs to tell you thanks for the money, dickhead. In particular. Like, hold on. I know you know. I need to make sure the rest of the chat knows what you're doing right now. So they have the context of what the fuck you've done. I know you know. I know you know. But you pay me money to call you a dickhead. So they need to be informed.
lower than the base model. However, this is wonderfully compensated by Myomer accelerated signal circuitry, so it can sprint as needed. They also decided to save weight by burning money and fabricating a custom Indo-steel chassis, because why not? The SA5
I want to go back and re-listen to this one. Sorry, 1 second.
Aggressive mech assault design, which would help them later. The CGR SA5 is in fact the badass hot rod version of the Charger. This bastard has a 320 light fusion engine and is slower than the base model.
Okay.
However, this is wonderfully compensated by myomer accelerated signal circuitry, so it can sprint as needed. They also decided to save weight by burning money and fabricating a custom window
so
steam.
it has an acceleration process of speeding up when, okay, rather than being just a high-speed mech itself. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to go about it.
Because why not? The SA-5, however, like all cool battle mechs, carries an LBX autocannon 20. It also has 3 ER medium lasers and 2 Streak SRM launchers.
It also has one hand to tickle your chin with. You notice its fingers? It gave it fingies to who's a good little mech boy?
Held together with 15.5 tons of armor, it's all around really great. It also costs all of the money. We'll seldom see it for this reason. But it is certainly and truly majestic. There are other approaches though, such as the attempt to turn the Charger into a full-on assault mech by gutting it and essentially starting over. This Warfront Charger, the CGR-SB or Challenger, punches the engine down to a commonly available Pitman 240. It has 15.5 tons of armor, and everything else is weapons. It has 4 large lasers, a medium laser, and 28 heat sinks.
28!
It's definitely a brawler with serious teeth, and certainly one of the more radical takes on the original Charger. As a stopgap upgunning of the Charger, I feel it is more a product of desperation intending to plug the gap of insufficient assault mechs rather than to excel as a platform. Charger chassis variants are their own special madness, with the Charger.
I'm sorry, if I saw this shit approaching me on the battlefield, I'd think it looks stupid as a bitch. Oh my god, this design looks stupid as a motherfucker. I'm so sorry to those of y'all who love this design. What the fuck is that? Why a mace for a hand? Why the fuck not? That's what stupid the other hand looks. It's just a grabber. You know those like extendo grabbers you can get? It's like the little handle and at the end's like a claw. You just need to like reach high places. I don't know, I'm like 5'4", so like I need those in my life. But like, you know what I mean? That's what it reminds me of. Like the other one looked like an actual hand. This one looks like dog shit. The claw from Toy Story. Yeah, there we go, yeah.
Inspiring such Solaris monsters as the Cudgel, which is the way it is because Solaris. Murder is a...
Oh my god, it is that kind of claw. Oh my god, these motherfuckers have a crane game on their hand. But don't worry, they got a decal skull. Hold up. Don't you fucking worry. Hold on. Don't you fucking worry. Because they got this deckled out skull. And that's way more important. Oh, hell no.
Sport there on nearly every channel, broken by advertisements for pleasures you cannot afford and should not rent. As such, it is the Charger made to beat people to death in grand fashion.
The crotch is
it is a pugilist
intimidating.
designed to remove Solaris gladiators in ways ancient Rome would applaud. It's designed...
You know when people get those they get like the uterus tattoo. It's like the one right above your hoo-ha. It's like right there on the uterus. I'm pointing at myself like you guys can fucking see it. But you know, it's like right down there in the area. Is that not the womb tattoo? Yeah. Is that not the fucking equivalent of that? Is that not the fucking equivalent?
for beating things to death, as they used to say.
And listen, pussy is also intimidating. Sorry.
Simple as. Off Solaris, and for those into asymmetrical warfare or just wanting to spice up the battlefield, unleashing a cudgel in a war zone is an interesting way to make a kaiju movie suddenly very real. The Charger inspired even grander things still. This is the Hatamoto Chi, and it is very serious business.
So why does it look like a charger? Well, as Wells Technologies had erred with House Kurita in magnitudes of failure measurable only in human screams, Kurita had a Wells plant and had been upgrading chargers for some time.
Okay.
Having pushed the charger as far as they cared to, they took the lessons learned and moved forward. The Hantamoto Chi is half charger, half thug, and a lot of Luthien armory gumption. It's also pretty cool. It's simple. It has 2 PPCs and 2 SRM6s. It's fast enough, tough enough, and expensive enough to live in the inner sphere. Also, most people think on some level it is, as stated, cool. So that helps it sell well among both hardened Kurita-aligned forces and really strange people making artistic statements on the battlefield. However, to sum the charger up best, I'm going to tell you the story of a pilot who I feel encapsulates what the charger really is.
It's crazy to me how many people have just been like kind of vibing and not saying too much. The moment I mentioned intimidating pussy, y'all start slamming keys on your keyboard. I'm gonna just say it now, chat. I should do that more often in my videos, where I just yell pussy at the top of my lungs and just see who the fuck is paying attention. And see which comments are gonna timestamp where I say it, you know? just to see what's going on with the community. My viewer watch time retention is super high, so I know you guys usually watch through the videos all the way through anyways. So I don't really need to do it. But sometimes it's kind of fucking funny.
Despite the grim years of the Fourth Succession War, one pilot made it through without a scratch until well after.
Huh, bitch?
Strangely enough, and against the grain, this thing sometimes has a reputation for being, well, lucky.
What? Oh Lord, Mr. Ford. Chapter 8.
Terry Ford was a veteran of the Succession Wars, and many would assume his hijinks were the result of some serious defect of education or
God, the
general
art is so damn good in this. Holy shit, I can't get over it.
self-preservation awareness. But it wasn't that at all, because Terry Ford believed in magic. Terry Ford believed in the magical protective qualities imbued into the machine he rode.
Oh, that is so cute. He got lucky sevens. He got different suits. Oh, he got hearts and clubs, but then he also got 4-leaf clovers on the helm. And he got, oh man, this is adorable. I love it.
A machine that, for some reason, could tangle with anything, and despite horrendous damage sustained, keep Terry safe. Against the likes of Atlases and Banshees, Terry charged in with his CGR-1A1, named Lucky Number 7. Terry Ford survived the Fourth Succession War without a scratch, every mission, without fail, despite the sheer amount of damage pummeled into his machine. After every battle, Terry cared for it in his limited protective way, as it was likely then his only surviving long-term friend. As such, he rode
okay,
the
that
war
is
with
such a sad line to say. Oh my god.
Lucky Number 7, surrounded by an ocean of collected lucky charms and trinkets. These too Terry believed in, and while he did survive the war, the charger helped him die in the way he probably wanted. Which is to say, when encountering a longbow and outnumbered asides, Terry decided that was a great time to remind people of what a charger could do. One failed attempt at death from above later, and, well, Terry Ford died that day, but he was probably laughing the whole time. Because to a charger pilot, any time is clobbering time.
Holy shit.
And while Terry Ford was dead somewhere in his pile of lucky trinkets, Lucky Number 7 was taken from the field and rebuilt into a Charger 1A9 as rightfully one battle salvage. Yet despite a full rebuild, Lucky Number 7 was different. Techs and commanders complained about how persistently odd it was.
I mean, in addition to that, it's like Terry was just an incredible pilot to even have the survivability that he had, right? It's not only about just this mech itself; it's also about him, because we know that there's a massive discrepancy between pilots and how outclassed they are from previous segments too.
Unfixable minor glitches and constant unsolvable malfunctions. It was, by all records available, from that day forward, a cursed instrument and a ruinous blight upon the new legal owners. Some said it was a lonely ghost in the machine, throwing hands the only way it knew how, perhaps clawing out in anger and missing its friend.
Yeah.
The last account we have of Lucky Number 7 is that it dropped out of the dropship during a combat drill for no identifiable reason, as though it too were finally done and decided to lay down. The Charger is most like that. It is imperfect, but it possesses through its faults some.
I kind of love the notion of that, because it's like this romanticized notion of like the connection between Terry and like number 7 was so strong that like they were unified in death, but then even when the mech is brought back, it no longer holds the same characteristics of what it once was, but also refuses to be advanced into something different, and like wanting to just be like at rest with like what it once was. But rather than giving it like the full human characteristics of emotion, it's like when you utilize something for so long, it does become a part of you. And it's like a part of, when you really think about it, it's like a part of like what Terry's very essence is a part of that mech, especially with like the development over time too. So it's cool.
Something else. I feel it perhaps approaches the concept of character we know best, one derived through long-standing suffering, or, as some might suggest, a tired old soul.
Full circle. Oh, the conclusion. Wow, wow. Time kind of flew by for this one. This will be a long video though.
Despite everything we're taught, war is frequently won by batshit crazy as much as anything else. It is often not the machine, but the pilot, which dictates the outcome of conflict. As such, I'll return us to Clausewitz, for he said, "Every age has its own kind of war, its own limiting conditions, and its own peculiar preconceptions." He knew that war was very strange, and that each war inherently unique, even back then. The Charger, as a machine of war, stands as a product of a time and a place so distant in memory that it has functionally faded into myth and legend. In that light, the Charger can be viewed as a peculiar mech, shaped in its own limiting conditions, designed under peculiar preconceptions in a very unique time. And I believe that the Charger's marginal entry into the world would have been entirely forgotten and wholesale discarded in thought, like so many other forgettable niche products, had it not been for the madness of the Succession Wars. That cataclysm was the test which allowed the Charger to find its true character, one of actual, demonstrated resilience, and despite being beaten down, always rising again.
Okay, I want to make sure there's a natural break in this talk. I think it's really amazing the way that this video came together, because like you can see all like the love and effort and devotion put in by so many different people to make it what it is. And we do have like some time left in the video too, like still, because we are in the conclusion phase, but there's still a lot of time left. I just think that it's just so incredible to see like how it came together. I just like, especially with like, one from the varying styles of art, especially when conveying certain aspects, and like the editing style is really solid. The way that some of the animations, like alongside the editing, made it so that it felt very lifelike, even in still image. Like they do like a really great job with so many different aspects. Obviously, the narration and the script itself is fantastic. Like, which is also wanted to acknowledge that too. But wow, and I'm sure like the video description of this, right, has I'm watching this on the wrong YouTube account. I realize that now because I was like, why am I not subscribed? It's on my wrong YouTube account. Anyways, yeah, cool. They do shout out the people who are involved in it. I was kind of hoping. It featured full screen. Yeah. I was kind of hoping that I was going to list out each of the artist names as well in the text for the description, but it already does it at the start of the video, so it doesn't matter.
Over and over, the cursed design went through absolute hell, and no matter the damage, with a new pilot, some fresh paint, and a few repairs later, it endured as a steadfast reminder that mechs were the apex predator of the battlefield.
Such maddening defiance in the face of the apocalypse, one that killed its pilots on industrial scale, might be called tragically heroic or perhaps apocalyptically naive. But this is a machine. So with the Charger, it's something else entirely. In the inner sphere, we have a word for it. We call it crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy is about
Oh,
tilting
that's
at
so
windmills,
cute.
full send, and expecting
That's how they
the
started the whole
windmills
thing
to
too, was
fall.
talking about the definition of
Is
crazy.
pugilism, grandstanding,
Oh,
and
the
macho
conclusion has it as well.
elbow in
That's
an age of
amazing.
mech warfare. Crazy has no regrets. Crazy is that cheerful, enduring presence
Oh
to
my
stand
god, I
tall
love it because the first way they described crazy was all the negative attributes, and then they go in with the end conclusion of crazy being like
meet the
uplifting.
next challenge, fists
Oh, that's
raised
dope.
in
That's
foolish
dope.
defiance no matter the odds. Crazy is what's left in the warfighting toolbox once everything else is gone and the fight ain't over with. Crazy isn't really about winning wars or conquering nations. It's about boxing the stars and the heavens and fate. Crazy is smiling at overwhelming odds and starting to swing regardless.
God damn.
Crazy is about wading into a gunfight with a sword and then winning. Crazy is about making your enemy use nukes on their own troops because you won't quit fighting and you're just too mad to die. Crazy is
Holy
about having
shit.
no weapons of any merit and windmilling your arms at the enemy until they get the message or put you 6 feet under. In that
God
sense,
damn.
I feel the common definition of crazy in the inner sphere as we know it is a barrel-fisted, 80-ton wrecking machine piloted by a psychopath fully intent on seeing what new friends he can make today. The Charger is precisely that righteous force of blissful, ignorant, cheerful violence, and in the right hands, exactly the sort of crazy solution you never knew you needed.
Yeah.
But if you aren't afraid of the Charger itself, please do keep in mind, it's seldom the mech you need to worry about in this business. It's frequently the lunatic that finds a Charger appealing that you need to be concerned with.
Yeah, that's fair. That's some fair shit.
With that, we'll end this history. Just as a reminder, repeated filling of my inbox with suggestions of lecture material are being read, but I do not have infinite time,
Yeah.
and this is not my full-time vocation for good reasons. The following artists, digital and analog, have greatly helped us with lecture materials, as again, most records of this era have been problematic, if not radioactive. Their peerless work has assisted this production, and many others.
Hell
and
yeah.
I feel we should endeavor to always recognize them fully for their talents, and implore you to seek their work for your own projects.
Like,
That being said, my team would flog me in my sleep if I didn't say the following. I don't shill, but I do have bills. Kindly and thank you. This is brought to you by you.
that's
and
cute.
Nobody else.
That's cute.
Class dismissed.
Alright, thanks for watching alongside me, folks. Thanks for having a good time. Don't forget to check out the original channel. It'd be super duper appreciated. The love and effort they put into it is insane. It's insanely good. And yeah, I'm glad that they reached out to me to ask me to check this out because I love checking out stuff. And also, the charity that I chose for them to donate $50 towards was for a cancer charity. I literally said any cancer charity that you choose. For those of you guys who don't know, I am battling uterine cancer. It's been a long journey, and I technically am in remission, but I have indicators that say that it might be back, but I don't want to say that with firmness. So I'm just saying that I'm still battling cancer until they give me more of the all clear. Remission is basically what happens in a stage where it looks like you don't have cancerous signs anymore. So usually they wait about a year or two before they call you fully cancer free. And based on my last operation, they said I was good. But then in between checkup, they got concerned about some stuff. So I'm going in for another operation coming up in the next week or two. So that's a little bit of a health update with all that stuff. And though it's a though it's a challenging time for me, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone's patience with me, everyone being so awesome and supportive. I know my content feels highly irregular compared to what I used to do. It's just been a really stressful point in my life, especially like having the emotional whiplash of being like, oh, fuck yeah, I beat cancer, to being like, oh my God, what's happening? So I just want to say thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for being awesome. And thanks for watching the video all the way through to this point, because it's great to have you here. And don't forget to like and subscribe on this channel as well. And I upload daily here on Aliciaxdeath and also on Aliciaxlife. We'll catch you later. Bye, folks.